I'm currently walking through the remains of an Ottoman era village that 500 years ago was a thriving hub of trade here in the Balkans. This is something that I never expected to find here in the country of Bosnia, but it sure is. Welcome to the Bosnian countryside. Good morning guys, and welcome back to another video here in the incredible country of Bosnia and Herzegovina. It is a beautiful morning in Mostar. A bit windy actually. It's been very windy these past few hours. You can hear the wind howling through the city, but we woke up, got a few really incredible shots of the city, and let me just say, Mostar from the air is probably even better than Mostar from the ground. Today we aren't actually going to be staying in Mostar. Like I said, yesterday we had seen most of Mostar, and sure, there are maybe a few churches to see left, but that's not really my focus here in Mostar. Instead, we're going to be taking a little bit of a day trip outside of Mostar to visit a few things. So it should be a really interesting day. We're really going to be immersing ourselves in the Bosnian countryside, and the adventure starts now. Here we go, time to get on the train. Now the place we're going to today is a town called Pocitelj. It is a town in the southern part of Herzegovina, almost pretty close to Croatia at this point, but there's a few things to do around there, so we're going to be spending most of our day in Pocitelj before coming back to Mostar at the end of the day. Funnily enough, this is the same train that came from Sarajevo. It goes all the way to Pocitelj as its last stop. We just got off at Mostar yesterday because that's where we were going to stay, but today we're going to finish the last bit of the train and end up at the very last station on the railway.
Everything?
Marka.
Yeah. Znači euro 14.
See you. I think we're in the middle of a student school. There's like a lot of people behind me. Hello. One person, please. The reason I decided to come all the way to Pocitelj and take the train and pay for a taxi to come all the way here is because of these waterfalls called Kravice Waterfalls. There's supposed to be some incredible waterfalls that just cascade down into this crystal clear blue water, and I think it's supposed to be like an array of different waterfalls in the river, but it's quite a hike down because we're still like at the mountain level. You can see it goes downhill over there, so we do need to walk down a little bit. So I guess I'm going to join this group of students and go on a school tour of Kravice Waterfalls. We've just got the first glimpse of these waterfalls, and wow, they're actually a lot taller than I expected. I thought they were going to be shorter waterfalls, but even from here they look pretty tall, so I'm excited to see what they're actually like once we get to the very bottom of the base of the waterfalls. Now before we actually get down to the base of the waterfall, the path down into the little area takes us first to the source of the waterfall. Now the river that leads to this waterfall is not the same one as it is in Mostar. There are actually different rivers here, but yet despite it not being the same river in Mostar, it is equally clear and equally blue, which is really impressive. I mean, that just tells you how well the nature and the environment is protected here in Bosnia. But you can see when it actually starts, it's quite a gentle stream, but it's because of that cliff's edge, that limestone cliff, where the water just falls off, that it creates this massive waterfall afterwards. But you can see right here, literally, the water just bubbling up together before it falls off that cliff. And it's really cool that they actually show you the start of the waterfall before you get down to the base of it. We have now officially come to the actual base of the waterfall, and if you look at that, that is incredible. These waterfalls are massive. I know I've looked at the photos and I thought that they were pretty small waterfalls, but to be completely honest, they are way bigger than I expected. The height of the waterfalls is a lot bigger than I expected, and obviously the overall distance that it covers is also a lot larger than I expected. I genuinely did not expect the waterfall to be this impressive, but once you get here, you really get an idea of how massive it is. Now, what to do here? There are a few things. The first thing you can do is you can do a boat trip, and the boat trip basically takes you all the way over to the waterfalls. Fortunately, that costs money. There are also a bunch of restaurants and grills, and most importantly, they do their classic sort of grilled animals here that you can try out. But the most important thing here is to relax. You just take a look around, you enjoy, you look at the beautiful scenery, and I think for most people, they're just lying down and tanning because that is what you come here to do. But it is a really, really peaceful place, and with the beautiful waterfalls as a backdrop, it is probably one of the best places to see in Bosnia. You can actually see right inside there are quite a few fish actually swimming in the river. Oh, look at how many there are over there. There is so much fish in the river. I'm not sure if that's the same fish that they're serving in the restaurant right over there, but it could be as fresh as it gets. Ooh. That's as cold as cryotherapy. That is, I'm pretty sure this river is also glacial water. That's why it's so cold. Oh, there's a little puppy. But I just put my second foot in and I feel like my feet are both numb. I'm gonna take a few more steps inside. Oh, on a hot day like today in this part of the world, it is great to put your feet in here. But I know sometimes here it gets up to 50 degrees. When it's that hot and you put your feet inside, that will probably be the most refreshing dip in any body of water you can ever find here in the Balkans. At this point, my feet feel so numb from the water. I bumped into a rock and I literally couldn't even feel it. Well, that waterfall, really beautiful. One of the best places I would recommend going to, but I don't know how to get out of here. I thought this was going to be the parking lot, but apparently it isn't. So now I need to figure out how I'm going to find my taxi driver. Yep, see you! And the next stop here in Bosnia, here in this area, is this town behind me, the town of Pocitelj, a town that literally tells a story over 500 years long. Now, the town of Pocitelj was built in the 15th century, so actually in the 1400s, by the Ottoman Empire. It was a small, little, charming Ottoman town, and today it's literally only like 10 minutes away from the bigger town of Chaplini, which is where we got the train to. But this Ottoman town is also known as an open-air museum, and the reason for that is everything here is the original. It wasn't really destroyed or affected by the war, and a lot of the stones, like this wall right behind me, these are the originals. They didn't have to rebuild much of it, and it's just the same structures that were here since the Ottoman Empire. Now, there's quite a few things to see in this little town, and like I said, it's an open-air museum, so a lot of these things are still living. In fact, there are over like a few families that still live in this town, that mainly their business now is tourism, but it's sort of experiencing a revival as more and more people are coming to visit Pocitelj. So with that, let's go ahead and see how beautiful this little town can be. Now, I mentioned that one of the great things about this town is that it is very, very well preserved, but that doesn't mean that they haven't suffered any losses at all. This right here is the main mosque of the town of Pocitelj. It was built in 1562, but in 1993 it actually got destroyed, and the rocks that are right behind me are the originals of the 1562 mosque that are still around. Now, they rebuilt the mosque in 2005 to sort of remake what it used to look like, but wow, this place is actually like living history. We're gonna go inside and we're gonna check out the mosque. Although I mentioned that they rebuilt this mosque in 2005, after going inside, I have a feeling that it's not the whole thing that was rebuilt with new materials. It's just these stones here were the ones that were saved, and as much as they could, they tried to use the original stones and the original materials to actually rebuild the mosque. You can tell that from the sort of artwork that's sort of fading in the background. That can't have faded since 2005. That must have faded at least 500 years. So they reconstructed it based on the materials they had, and if it couldn't be used anymore, then it was sort of discarded. So this side here the land of the abandoned stones. Now, Pocitelj was not just some typical Ottoman Empire town. It wasn't just any ordinary town. This was a really important town because it served as a khan. Basically, if you were traveling along these roads and you needed a place to stay, Pocitelj would be the place to go. You would stay in this building right here, right behind me, which is the khan, and then the revenue that they used from the khan would be used to sort of support the town financially and help everybody in the town survive. But at its core, it kind of was a hospitality place. It was a kind of a place for people to rest along the way. The khan would house a lot of the horses that came through, so if you were traveling by horse, this is where you would probably let your horses rest, get some water, get some food, before continuing and heading on, perhaps down to Istanbul. Who knows where you were going at the time. Well, obviously then the town clearly must have a very important khan, so with that, let's go check out the khan. Once you come inside here, you understand why people call Pocitelj the open air museum. This literally feels like a museum. This was the ancient khan, where people would come and rest. I might be standing in the place where the horses were resting and I wouldn't even know. Wow, this place is awesome. And even better, on the other side of this room, you'll see there is an entire hammam, sort of bath area. I think this is where they would heat up the floors or something like that. Wow, it really feels like you're stepping back in Ottoman history and just disappearing into the past. Wow, this is what Bosnian history is all about. It really feels like I've just stepped back 500 years in history and I'm walking into the khan for the first time after a long journey towards Istanbul. Now, some of these homes today are still inhabited by locals who live here, the families who run the sort of tourism thing going on here in Pocitelj. However, a lot of these houses are not so well maintained, and this is a reality of what it usually looks more like. Just a bunch of wood, trash, wires, shoes, whatever you name it, things long gone, lost for the years, just stored in these houses and never really looked after, never really looked into for a very, very long time. That's not to say all houses are like that, but for a lot of them, they're locked up, the families have moved out, have moved on, and well, this has simply become a historical town for a lot of them. After a bit of a hike, we've come to the top viewpoint overlooking the entire town of Pocitelj. Wow, I mean, that is the Watchtower. We're gonna visit that in a bit, but this view, this is incredible. You can see miles and miles of Bosnia, just never ending, and just past those mountains over there, that's Croatia. That's Croatia, and that's the Adriatic Sea. And down there, all the way over there, is Mostar. But this is literally the heart of Pocitelj, and you can see the mosque that we were at earlier. You can see the little houses that we were going through as we were climbing up here. It really feels like you have just entered back into medieval era Ottoman Empire times. I can't tell you how amazing Pocitelj is, and as I continue exploring this town, I'm starting to realize that this is such a hidden gem. And the bad thing about a lot of tours is that they come here for 30 minutes, but in my opinion, 30 minutes is nowhere near enough time you need to properly explore and really live your childhood playground dreams here in Pocitelj. These are some of the steepest steps I've ever taken, but if you want to get to the top of the Watchtower, this is what we gotta do. Now, welcome to the Watchtower of Pocitelj, which marked sort of the main protection point for the entire town. Now, if you've seen the drone shots, you'll see that this is a walled town. Pocitelj is protected by a series of walls that go around the entire town itself. And this is because this was a very strategic point. If you look right behind me, you'll see that's the river. That's the same river that runs from Mostar. It's the river Neretva. And it's very important because this right here was the last stop before people went to Dubrovnik. So earlier I was saying how people might come to the khan and rest. Well, they weren't resting for Istanbul, they were resting for Dubrovnik because Dubrovnik is right beyond those mountains. Now, of course, such an important place would need to be protected adequately considering how much trade was going to run through, which is why this watchtower was built to look over the entire town of Pocitelj. To me, it's an impressive structure, and the fact that 500 years later, it's still standing and you still feel very, very stable in here. Like, I'm gonna jump and I feel pretty safe in here. So that is called a marvel of engineering. Well, the final thing you gotta do here in Pocitelj is support the local community. The best way to do so is to buy something, specifically pomegranate juice. Apparently there are only 5 families that live in Pocitelj now, and those 5 families make some of the best pomegranate juice you're gonna find anywhere on the planet. They're famous for it here in Pocitelj, so I had to give this a try. Let's try it out. That cold pomegranate juice, it does wonders when it's 25 degrees Celsius outside. And just like that, we are back in the city of Mostar. It was just literally a quick 5-minute car ride back to the train station of Čapljina, and then from there, a train back 30 minutes, and I'm back in Mostar. That's how close these distances are. Bosnia is not a big country, and it's very manageable to actually travel around this country quite affordably by the public transport system, which is what I love about this country. But today, what an incredible day it has been. The waterfalls were very impressive, but for me, what stole my heart was Potelj. Potelj is such a nice town, and it honestly, it is an open air museum. Like, you literally feel like you've stepped back into time. There are still 5 families that live there, but these 5 families are sort of keeping it all together. Other families have sort of come and gone, so they've sort of used it as summer homes. Some of them are trying to sell the houses, but the truth is, Pocitelj is probably one of my favorite places in the Balkans. It is just so underrated, and once you get to the top and you have that view of the river Neretva, which is the same river that runs through Mostar, it really gives you a sense of how important this was 400 years ago, you know, when the people were using it to trade all across the Balkans and then finally making it to Dubrovnik to be sold elsewhere around the world. But if you enjoyed this video, please definitely give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more food and travel videos. Bosnia is a country that continues to blow me away, and today in the countryside of Bosnia, I have seen so much, I've explored so much, and honestly, I'm just exhausted. It's been such a long day. But with that all said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Make sure to stay tuned because we've got more videos coming from here in the Balkans, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye guys.